I'd like to invite up onto the stage Ravi Kumar of Google, their Cloud Identity Product Manager.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and hope you had a nice time in the past 2 days here. And also, the most important thing is last night. How many of you were at the party last night? Oh, most of you. It's day 3, right? So it's very interesting. Hopefully, you've learned a lot of new things, something you can take it back and then apply to manage your devices more securely and effectively. So in this session, we'd like you to step back a little bit and look at your other parts of your IT infrastructure, starting with your devices, of course, and also look at your enterprise directory and your identities, also your applications and services. The key area of focus here is how you can bring in a modern identity and access management solution to secure all these things, at the same time providing your employees the key capabilities to be more productive. Again, I'm Ravi Kumar. I'm the product manager at Google Cloud, and I have 2 wonderful co-presenters here from Jamf, Joe and Brad. They'll be sharing the stage later this session. And then in today's agenda, we'll start with cloud identity, a quick overview of what is cloud identity and why Google decided to invest in the identity and access management space. And then we'll quickly get into some of the exciting demos that Brad will be showing us on how to integrate Jamf with Google Cloud Identity and Access Management solution. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with Joe talking about some of the benefits on how you can use Google products and then integrate with Jamf. And then we'll wrap it up with question and answers. All right, so how many of you know what is Google Cloud Identity? Have you heard about Cloud Identity before? There are a couple of hands there. So it's good that you're in this session so you can learn a lot about Cloud Identity. So in the past, right, so your security model for your corporate used to be you secure your entire perimeter and put all your crown jewels, your applications, data, everything behind this firewall. And you actually go to your work and you access all your applications using a desktop or a laptop that your company used to provide. And majority of the work used to be along with your colleagues, right? And then if you have noticed, it all has changed in the recent past, even in the past 10 years, right? So you want to actually go to work, and then you want to work from, say, Starbucks, sipping coffee. Or you want to go home and then work. You want to bring your BYOD devices, your laptop or your tablet to work. And also, primarily, you want to actually start using some of the modern applications, these SaaS-based applications that are rapidly growing in the industry. And they're nowhere close to your perimeter, right? So your workplace is changing. But so the perimeter-based security model that used to be okay in the past no more works, right? Because with all these like changing workplace, right? So the traditional way of doing things will not help you achieve this digital workplace. What you need is a modern identity and access management solution that will provide the same kind of security that you deserve, but at the same time, it also provides the flexibility for your employees to be productive wherever they are, whatever the device that they choose to use. And that's where the Beyond Corp security model comes into picture. Google has designed this security model back in 2011, and we also implemented within Google. And then we also wrote a white paper so that others can take this Beyond Corp model and implement in their own organizations, right? So the key tenet of Beyond Corp is you don't trust any network. And then Another key thing is focus more on wrapping up security because you no more are working behind the firewall, right? So you wrap up the security with around your users, devices, and also applications. And also now you inspect each and every request that is coming into your applications, and we authenticate it, authorize it, and encrypt it before it accesses your applications. So that, again, you can provide the same kind of security, but you have the flexibility to move around, right? So that's the key tenet here. And if you look at Google's crown jewels, their source code, it's on the internet. But again, it's basically protected by the Beyond Corp security model that we have in place since past 6 or 7 years. And cloud identity is the vehicle that can bring the Beyond Corp security model to your organizations. Cloud identity is an identity and access management platform, and also mobile device management platform. So they both melded into one single offering for our customers. It provides a single pane of glass for you to manage your users, applications, devices, all within in the console. And then also, it's been there for years. So it's part of, it has been part of G Suite and GCP, which are Google's existing suite of products. And it's been there for some time. So we have tens of thousands of customers, and also millions of our users are already using this product already. And then we have recently launched a standalone version of this product so that you don't have to use one of the existing G Suite or GCP products. You can grab this solution as a standalone solution. And then the key design principle for us when we are designing cloud identity was we want to make it simple, smart, and secure. Starting with simplicity. Google is known for simplicity in the way we design. And these enterprise applications can quickly become very, very complex with like lots of bells and whistles and things like that. It may be overwhelming, right? So we want to make sure we actually retain all the capability, but we bring the Google's simplicity to these things so that your administrators can quickly get up to the speed and then most effectively manage your applications. Smart. Bring Google's core competency, machine learning, AI, and other intelligence-related aspects into cloud identity so that your solution is smart. And secure, this is like one of the top priority, top investments for Google. We'll talk a little bit more about security in the next slides. Cloud identity provides a single pane of glass to manage a variety of things in your IT infrastructure, right? So it has a lot of components here by looking at it. So it starts with user lifecycle management, device management, you have single sign-on, automated provisioning. We provide comprehensive reporting and auditing capabilities, a comprehensive API so that you can automate things. So we'll touch upon like some of these core components of cloud identity. So the first one is user lifecycle management. So you can provision user accounts within Google Cloud Identity, either using our admin console or APIs or a mobile app. We have something called Google Admin Mobile App, so you can quickly create and provision and then manage your users on the go. But at the same time, if you already have your identities in one of your corporate directories like Active Directory or LDAP or other HR solutions, you can synchronize those identities within Google, and you can set up that automatic synchronization. On the outbound side, whenever you create, modify, delete user accounts within Cloud Identity, you can automatically make those changes in the downstream applications, other cloud-based applications, so that it's not tedious for your admins to go create identities in 10 different applications when someone joins, and then when someone leaves, you have to go to each and every application and then disable those things. So we are automating all that for you. And then the next area is security. In this world of data breaches, phishing, and the malware attacks, right? Security is like one of the most important things, the user security. So Google has invested a lot. Google is a thought leader and also is an innovator when it comes to security. So from a multi-factor authentication perspective, there are multiple components that we provide in the user security. One of the key components is multi-factor. So we provide a number of ways to do multi-factor authentications, starting from the basic SMS-based multi-factor authentication, all the way to the most secure, phishing-resistant FIDO security keys. The protocol underneath the FIDO security keys, Google and FIDO has co-created the U2F protocol so that you all can be secure. And then this is not just confined to Google, right? So we are working with FIDO to actually bring this model to other companies so that everyone can be secure. And now so from a secure multi-factor authentication perspective, Google strongly recommends FIDO security keys because they are the most secure way of doing multi-factor authentications. Another part of security is Google's ability to see the threats, right? So Google currently manages over a billion identities when you combine these consumer identities that we manage and also the enterprise management identities. So we have this vast surface area on the internet where we are able to look at all the threats that are going on, new threat models, new threat vectors that are emerging on the internet. And we take all those threat signals, and then we use our machine learning and AI capabilities to enhance, to strengthen the security of cloud identity so that you can use the same identity to basically expand and then apply to all your applications within your company. And then finally, Google stops over 1 million or so attack takeovers, the account takeovers that happen like on a daily basis. Every single day, we stop over 1 million account takeover attempts. Sorry for that. So this is an example of a security key. So it comes in 2 flavors. One that goes into your USB port, and then the other version is the Bluetooth version. So there are many vendors in the market who manufacture these security keys. Google is one of them. And if you want to buy these security keys, make sure you're buying FIDO standards-based security keys. They're compliant with FIDO standards. Another aspect of security is the security center. So we provide you a clean, nice dashboard so that you can go to one single place and monitor the security in your cloud identity. So we'll start with prevention. So we have a component called Security Health, which allows you to look at all your security settings in one single place. And most importantly, it allows you to compare your existing security settings with Google's security best practices. If we don't see some alignment, like in one of your security policies, we actually provide you recommendations on how to fix those issues. And most importantly, how to fix those and why to fix those issues. So that's a preventative measure. We also provide a dashboard which gives you a bird's eye view of all the security things that are happening within cloud identity so that you can look at any threats happening or any security anomalies. And if you see any security anomalies, you can quickly drill down into those issues by using the investigation tool. Context-aware is another security area where we bring the Beyond Corp security model using these policies, right? What it does, it allows you to place access control rules for your applications based on user identity and also the context. So when I say context, where this request is coming from which IP address, which device, and things like that. So for example, if you have a sensitive application like a corporate finance application, you can create a rule saying that, hey, I want this application to be accessible only to my finance group. And these finance groups can access this application from a set of IP addresses, probably it's your corporate IP addresses. Or you can say, these finance users need to use a certain type of operating system or certain type of security posture that a device currently have, right? Or on the other side, you can actually create another policy saying that, like, hey, I have a cafe menu, which is not sensitive application. I want to make it available to all employees, contractors, everyone in the company. They can use whatever the application, whatever the device that they have, and wherever they want, right? And anywhere in between. So context-aware access gives you that flexibility in creating those access policies. Device management, mobile device management is another area. We allow you to manage Android devices, iOS devices, Chrome devices, and also ActiveSync devices using the same console. And our customers are currently managing over 10 million mobile devices using cloud identity at this time. And also, our customers love us so much, they voted us as a top Gartner's Peer Insight Customer Choice Award for 2018. And now coming to the third pillar, which is managing the applications, right? So we have a vast, comprehensive, pre-integrated application catalog that you currently have for single sign-on. So which allows you to configure with little or no configuration, you'll be able to configure single sign-on applications within Cloud Identity. In addition to single sign-on app catalog, we also support automated and deprovisioning and provisioning, as I suggested before. And then also a bunch of access controls and access management for applications and APIs. So this is the second segment before, and the last segment before the exciting demo starts, the hybrid identity, right? We all know that this SaaS-based application adoption is going through the roof. But at the same time, we also recognize that many of you have already invested in many applications that are still on-prem, right? It's going to take some time before you move all those things to the cloud, right? But until then, we need an identity system to support those applications. And having one identity system for cloud application, another identity system for on-premise based applications, it starts actually creating more challenges for you. So that's where the secure LDAP comes into picture, right? So we are launching secure LDAP in the coming weeks. We've recently announced this in Cloud Next Google conference in London. So what it does is it's an LDAP as a service. So think about it as like an LDAP server in the cloud, but you don't have to install anything. You don't have to manage anything. It's just a SaaS-based service, right? So we're bringing the identity and meet where you are, where your applications are on-premise. And then when you're ready to move to cloud, we will help you accelerate the cloud migration using the same security. And one of the key things is, in addition to supporting your on-premise based applications, it could be your custom application, or it could be a third-party applications like Jira or SAP or other applications. We also support your IT infrastructure servers, like, for example, VPN servers, or Radius servers, or other security servers that normally integrate with your current on-premise enterprise directories. Another key benefit is there's no user change management required, because this is a server-level change, right? You go to one of these application servers, you change the configuration in the directory settings. So instead of pointing the directory settings to your on-premise Active Directory or other enterprise directories, all you have to do is just point to Google's LDAP directory in cloud, right? So from a user's perspective, there's no change management required because they're still seeing the same kind of login screens. One of the key benefits by using this LDAP as a service is you'll be able to reduce the on-premise footprint, the corporate directory footprint, right? If you're an administrator, identity administrator, you know how much complex it is, right? So from a cost perspective, you don't need to pay for the server costs or server software or CAL licenses from a complexity perspective, right? So again, if you're an administrator, you know how complex these corporate directories can happen, right? So you don't need to, basically, by reducing the footprint, you're also reducing the cost associated with them and then also complexity associated with them. This is even more true if you're using the lift and shift approach to take some of your applications that are on-prem onto the cloud and you're hosting on VMs, right? And this is a trend that's going on. So if you want to move to cloud, this is the first step majority of the companies are looking at. So regardless of which infrastructure as a service platform that you are using, Google Compute Engine or Azure or AWS, you are basically forced to kind of put your corporate directory there. You create a VM, you start thinking about like, oh, I'll throw in one VM, right? But guess what? It's not just one single VM, right? So now you need disaster recovery in the cloud for those applications. Probably you're doubling up your servers. If your company is operating in multiple countries, probably you might be thinking about, oh, let me replicate this in multiple regions, right? So now you're replicating everything. And now if some of your applications are not discovery enabled, then you might need some load balancers. So you're quickly taking the entire complexity that you currently have on-prem that are related to your corporate directories, and then you're replicating everything, the same complexity again in the cloud, right? So it's a double whammy. So cloud is supposed to kind of make this easier for you. So you can avoid all that by just using secure LDAP for all those applications that are in your lift and shift infrastructure in IaaS platforms. And we are very excited to launch secure LDAP with a number of enterprise products in the industry, starting with Jamf, one of our the core device management solutions. There are many other wide variety of enterprise applications from developer tools, network and security tools, and then automation solutions, and many more. We're adding more launch partners with secure LDAP. With that, I'd like to invite Brad onto the stage to show us the exciting demo.
All right, thank you, Ravi. So I'm going to quickly go through and kind of show you exactly how we would go about setting up the Google Secure LDAP connection, both within the Google Admin Console and also Jamf Pro. It's a pretty simple solution. That's kind of the beauty of it. So those of you who are familiar with configuring an LDAP connection within Jamf Pro, this actually might be a little bit boring for you. And if you're familiar with the Google Admin Console, you should be familiar with this as well. So I'll start in the Google Admin Console. And what we're going to do is I'm going to refresh this. And I'm going to hop into apps. So you will see this LDAP section if you are subscribed to this. And basically what we need to do within the Google Admin Console is, in essence, create an LDAP client connection. So I'll just kind of step through here, and we will create a Jamf Pro connection by adding a client. Jamf Pro JNUC. Okay, so the first step here is to configure your access permissions. So you can basically indicate what subset of your directory you want to give access to this LDAP client, to Jamf Pro. So I'm going to actually go ahead and just enable the entire domain here. That's for verifying user credentials, so for logins. If you wanted to specify a different set of permissions or a different subset of your directory, that you wanted to access user information, you could do so as well. And I am going to flip on the option to actually read group information. So I basically turn this all on. I'll go ahead and I'll add this LDAP client.
Is that like your groups in G Suite?
Yes. So it will be, we could have gone through and we could have selected that second radio button and selected groups or OUs within G Suite. So, okay, so next step. We actually have to grab a couple of certificates, or excuse me, a certificate and a key. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to download that. The way that Google Secure LDAP basically connects or requires a connection is with certificates. A small caveat to this, right now you will have to use a proxy. Jamf Pro currently doesn't support certificate authentication within LDAP, but that is on the roadmap and we do intend to support it. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. Finally, we're going to continue on to our client details, and we are almost finished. So you can see here our access permissions. we are going to actually go ahead and you can see our certificate as well. I'm going to hop into the authentication section here. There's one last thing that we need to do from a security perspective. We actually need to generate a set of access credentials. So there's both the certificate security that Google implements and then also a set of access credentials that we'll have to generate, and those are randomly generated. And then we'll have to grab those and put those into the LDAP connection within Jamf Pro. So we would take these credentials, you would save that, and then we would hop over to Jamf Pro and put those in. I'm going to go ahead and close this right now. I do have a different connection that I'm using just for the sake of this demo, but kind of the final step here would be to actually turn this on. So once I flip this on, it should be enabled. It might take some time to propagate. Sometimes it could take up to 24 hours. But in theory, we should be able to go out and use this connection within Jamf Pro and configure it. So on that note, I will actually hop over to Jamf Pro, and I will log in. So this is fairly straightforward from a Jamf Pro perspective, like I mentioned earlier. I'm going to go into Settings and LDAP servers, just like you would configure any standard LDAP server like Active Directory. And I'm just going to click New here real quick. And at this time, we're going to actually select the Configure Manually button. We're just going to kind of go through and put in a couple of kind of custom settings. We do intend to have a Google option here with some pre-populated settings in the future, so keep an eye out for that, and Joe can talk a little bit about that in his section of the presentation. But for now, we're going to go ahead and configure manually. So we would go ahead and create this, and we would actually flip it back to configure manually. For the purposes of this demo, I actually have a pre-configured one that I'm actually going to hop out to, and we're going to talk about these settings so that I don't have to type in a whole bunch of stuff and probably mess it up. So here's my pre-configured Google Secure LDAP connection. Like I said, configure manually for now is the directory service that we're going to select. You'll notice server import. I'm actually pointing to like my local server. This is a Jamf Pro instance that's installed out on the Google Compute Engine. I do have a proxy set up that basically handles the certificate communication there. We will be supporting that natively, so this interface will probably be changing slightly for the Google Secure LDAP connection in the future. You'll probably have an option to upload a client certificate here, but for now, we're going through the proxy. Authentication, simple. So, I've generated a test credential in my Google admin account, and I've entered it here. And everything else on this screen is pretty much default. We'll hop over to the Mappings tab, and we'll just go through, and there's some custom mappings here. So you can select any of the object classes that you want to filter down to. I just left it blank to basically hit the entire directory. I've entered in my appropriate search base, and a couple of different attribute mappings. So I've put in mail for user ID, UID for username, display name for real name, mail for email address, and then UID for user UUID. Those may vary within your environment, and you can also enter in custom attributes if you did want to map additional attributes. And we will have a knowledge base article with all of this information that's going to be released in conjunction with the general availability of the Secure LDAP product, so you don't have to frantically scribble this down. We'll hop over to our user group mappings. Same concept here. I did enter in an object class there, my appropriate search base. A couple of attribute mappings, fairly straightforward. CN for group ID, display name for group name, entry UUID for group UUID. And then our user group membership mappings. I did flip this to user object. I believe the default is a group object. And then I've entered in my appropriate group membership mapping, which is member of, and I have checked the box to use a distinguished name when searching. So I'll go ahead and I'll save this, and we're just going to want to test this connection, make sure that this is functioning. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look up a test user account that I have created within my directory. And there we go. So I've went out and I've searched for the LDAP test user. It's brought back that user. It's brought back the attributes that I do have mapped. So that's great. That indicates that the connection is working. We just want to make sure that our user group mappings are functioning. So I have a test user group. Perfect. Brings that back. I can see the GID. Last step here is user group membership mapping. So I'm going to test that same. Nope. That same user. They should be a member of the test group. They are. And then just to make absolutely certain, I'm going to kind of test the opposite use case here and make sure that they are not a member of admin group, which they aren't. So we are good to go now. That's literally it from a connection perspective. Like I said, it should be fairly straightforward and familiar if you are familiar with kind of an Active Directory or any other sort of LDAP connection within Jamf Pro. And now at this point, you can use this connection for anywhere within Jamf Pro that you can use a standard LDAP connection. So I'm just going to go through and give a couple of examples. You may be familiar with these, but kind of the most basic thing is a Jamf Pro login. So right now I'm logged in with a local admin account. I actually want to go through and create an additional admin account using my Google Secure LDAP. So I'm going to select Add LDAP account. I'm going to search for my LDAP test user. There it is. And I want to be an administrator. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and we're going to log out of my local user account. And we're going to attempt to log in with the directory account. Ooh. All right, I typed my password correct that time. So that's kind of one of the places that you can use this. A second valuable place that you can, of course, use an LDAP connection is scoping policies. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually just create a quick policy here. And I'm just going to try to install Google Chrome. And I have a package within my Jamf Pro instance that's Google Chrome, so I'm going to go ahead and add that. I want to hop over to self-service because I do want to make it available there. And then I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to scope it to all computers, but then I do want to limit it down to a particular LDAP group. So I have that test group that I was using before. So you can see here, I can go ahead and I can actually limit this down to particular LDAP user groups. So I'm going to search for that. That comes up. Go ahead and add that. Done. And save. And now if I did have a managed machine within this Jamf Pro instance, I would be able to go out, open up self-service, log in with the appropriate credentials, and install Google Chrome. So that's really it. It's incredibly straightforward. And like I said, we do intend to fully support the secure LDAP with the client certificates and adding more I guess, customization within the workflow to set this up in the near future. So Joe can talk a little bit more about that and really what the value is for you.
Brad, good job. All right, I'm going to assume that I can just hide this here. All righty, so this is a really wonderful thing, and I recognize that this has been a gap for a number of Jamf Pro customers, where You might be in K-12, where you've seen a lot of Google traction. It's making a lot more traction in the enterprise as well. And this is something that, without having secure LDAP, you're stuck with other means of trying to integrate with your directory. So you might have AD syncing to Google, and then you might have to go back to your LDAP. And just use the legacy ways of doing this. I've even seen some people who do this manually, and they'll just manually recreate their directory because that's a way to do it, and then you can scope. So this is really, really impactful in terms of what we know that allows you to do. So as you look at what we're doing, this is another really big theme in terms of what we talked about last year and what we've been talking about this year as well at the Jamf Nation User Conference. Last year, we really talked about Jamf and our Jamf and story was conditional access. It was about device trust. It was touching on identity of trusted user, trusted device. And this carries that forward, this Jamf and story now with Google and what we can do in our partnership with Google to look at things like secure LDAP, what that means for you, and then where we can take that in the future. Now, really, the Jamf and story is quite simple. We have a very powerful product in Jamf Pro. It allows you to do a lot of things for your students, for your employees, for your patients. But you can also now integrate with more things. And the more things that you need that are business critical for you, we want to be sure that we can integrate with. So being a good partner with Google is really important for us in being able to deliver that value for all of those who are thinking about or are currently using Google in any form, whether that is the G Suite, the Google Cloud Platform, and now their spun-off Google Identity solution. Speaking of trusted identities, really when you think about what LDAP gets you, Brad showed a number of the ways that you use LDAP today in product, and so that unlocks a lot of capabilities. One of the most fundamental is just authentication, right? So from a device setup standpoint, that ability to authenticate at enrollment to help prevent against any kind of man-in-the-middle attack, that's very central to security and establishing the identity and confirming that identity. At the end of the day, also, as we saw, that allows you to do admin accounts in Jamf Pro. Also, in addition to the single sign-on support that we have today, it gives you that method of doing the scoping. That's really the biggest thing when I look at this that I love about it, is allows you to scope things more appropriately with your directory service. Now, moving forward, I know Brad had mentioned we do have some additional work to do as the product launches. So as we move forward with this, we'll have some documentation showing you how to do everything that Brad just showed you. We'll also be building out the exact configurations that you need for the Google Secure LDAP setup, including the client certificate. I'm really excited about that as well because I love certificates. Just having that more modern auth is great. But then also this gives us some foundational pieces of doing additional work. So I'm going to do a shout out back to the keynote. In the keynote, you saw what we were doing with Azure AD in the setup of a Mac. Well, that kind of activity is the same kind of activity we can start to look at and Jamf can build now with the tools that we have in our partnership with Google to provide that same kind of simple experience for end users. And that's really what we're looking for. We want to make sure that you're secure. We want to make sure that you trust your identity. And we want to make sure that you can carry that whole thing through your experience on any Apple device. That's really the heart of what we're trying to do. Empowering people with technology that puts humans first means focusing on that user experience, whether you're the user and you want to use LDAP, because now you can scope better, or we're talking about the user with the device and just making sure that whole setup process works seamlessly. So that being said, I'm going to bring Ravi back up. We'll wrap things up here, and then we'll answer some questions. But I'm really glad that you were all able to come out, and for those who are watching this on the video later, please, again, ask us any questions that you want. But Ravi's going to come up and wrap this up, and then we'll do Q&A.
Thank you. All right, to basically sum it up, right? So cloud identity makes it central to bringing the digital workplace to your workplace, right? And then also, if you want to use the Beyond Corp security model, it's the vehicle that allows you to get the security model, the Beyond Corp security model, and use it in your enterprises to secure your applications, services, and devices. Security is like one of the key things for Google, so it provides the state-of-the-art user security, and multi-factor is one of them, as the FIDO security keys, like is one of the key component there. We use machine learning, AI, to even strengthen even more this from a security perspective. And also we are bringing smarts using these technologies. And finally, we have hybrid identity, which allows us to kind of like meet where you are, regardless of where you are in the cloud journey, by allowing you to integrate both for your cloud use cases and also on-premise based applications and services using secure LDAP, sync tools, and other tools that we currently offer within Cloud Identity. And lastly, you can all get this in one single subscription. If you're a G Suite, if you already have G Suite, it's just an add-on, Cloud Identity Premium add-on. But if you don't have G Suite, it comes in a standalone model. And if you need more information, you can go to cloud.google.com/identity to get more details. With that, we'll open it for question and answers. And I would like to invite both Joe and Brad to come onto the stage. Yes?
You guys currently offer G Suite to education customers for free. Do you expect any sort of, will this always be a premium add-on even to education customers?
For education customers, we have a premium add-on called EDU Pro. So there's a premium version of the identity section. So some of the basic identity and device management capabilities are available in the base EDU version, and some of the premium features like secure LDAP is available in the premium version of EDU.
Last question. Do we expect, you mentioned like on the Mac, we did yesterday with Active Directory. I know you can comment on that, but is that like JNUC 2019 we see that? Or what are you guys thinking there? Is it just like literally, I know you guys just announced this, is this just like, you know, spitballing what we can do now?
So you're right, I can't speak specifically to timeline because that would be probably unfair to you, but, but the workflow that you saw in the keynote is the workflow that we want to be able to replicate for all identity providers. So that is something we will be focused on. It's not something that is sort of a dream world. It's something that's in our power to build, and we want to build that.
Yeah, so I'm a G Suite enterprise customer. What parts of this are premium add-on? Because I know in Cloud Identity, there's the free version you get with G Suite has pretty much 80% of what I saw here. Is the secure LDAP going to be a premium add-on for enterprise customers?
If you have the enterprise license for G Suite, secure LDAP will be part of that.
Okay, so everything you showed here.
Correct.
You know
Yes.
when that's going to be turned on for tenants?
Turned on for what?
Well, do you know when you're going to be rolling that out to your customers?
Secure LDAP is coming in the next few weeks.
Cool, thank you.
So as an enterprise customer, we should just see it appear in our admin console like that?
That's correct. And then if you're looking at the launch blog post, we will post a blog post in the G Suite. There's a What's New calendar, and then there are many varieties of, there's a customer portal. So keep a watch on that, and then as soon as we launch, you will see the blog post there.
Hi, you touched on custom LDAP attributes a little bit. Can you speak more about any ability now or plans to, for the ability to create brand new custom LDAP attributes on the Google side that may not have been initially planned for?
Yeah, so the good thing about the secure LDAP is you don't have a separate directory to maintain, right? So if you have Google directory, secure LDAP is just a layer on top of that. So you can use your existing Google directory, which means that, so currently you can extend the attributes, the user schema within G Suite. And when we launch this, we will not have the support for custom attributes, but this is one of those important things that we wanted to work on for the subsequent versions of secure LDAP.
Okay, thanks.
So with Google Cloud Identity right now, it looks like you guys have the ability to do things like SSO and applications and services. When you sync with an Active Directory source, like an on-prem source, a lot of the controls in that can be access to file systems and things that might affect an actual machine. Do you see extending this to do almost a conditional access thing like Microsoft's doing with Jamf Connect? Do you have plans to do that with this type of offering in the future?
So, are you specifically looking at file services, or
so you could authenticate with DAP in your DAP workflow with Google Cloud Identity, but after that, would you actually have like a, with Jamf Connect, you'd log in with that actual identity, and then certain permissions on that file system and within your environment would also be dictated by that, kind of what they showed in the keynote with Microsoft. I'm wondering if Google has plans to also approach that kind of a offering with Google Cloud Identity.
Got it. So there are a number of things that we're trying to bring to actually modernize your file system access, right? So again, so one of the key things is team drives. Many of our customers are using team drives if you're using G Suite. And we also recently launched, launching the Cloud Search, which also surfaces some of the components, all those files that you currently have on the web. So there are a number of tools that we are launching in order to surface that to make it more modern, allow you to actually access from a number of things. If you're specifically asking about the access permissions for the Windows file server base, you won't be able to do this using this particular capability. You need something like a Kerberos capability, which we're thinking about. At this point of time, you cannot manage access controls for Windows file servers using Cloud Identity.
And if I may, to rephrase, not if I get this right, one of the things that it sounds like you were curious about is how we establish not just the user credential, but then authenticate that the device can be trusted. Is that the spirit of what you're asking? So, yeah, to that point, one of the things that we can take a look at is potentially similar to device trust workflows, how to establish a trusted device when you have the source of truth as Google Cloud Identity. Some people do that with certificates, and so they use a certificate-based approach. You might see that with Okta, but we can chat offline about kind of what you're looking for and what would help you in your environment.
And then we recently launched something called endpoint verification, right? So it's a simple Chrome extension that allows you to install on your devices to see the information on what kind of devices are accessing. We are also working on enhancing our mobile device management platform to kind of allow you to tag these devices, whether they're company-owned or not. So using these access controls, you'll be able to make a decision based on some of the information that we are bringing in from the existing endpoint verification and also the company-owned or not flags within Google.
And with that, please go ahead.
You got, a lot of schools using G Suite. Probably switched to it because it was free.
Yes.
Let's say you got a school with 200 teachers and students, a small school, not paying anything today. Do you think they have the budget for $6 per user per month when they're paying nothing now?
Is EDU? So I don't know how much the pricing for the premium version of EDU costs, but.
I'm talking about the free version. It's got unlimited storage, team drives, incredible feature. It's transformed many schools across the country.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is when they see $6 used per month, they're going to say, we don't have the budget for $1,200 a month for 200 licenses. Can you do that times 12? What would you say to that?
Right now, we're providing a promotional price of $4 per user per month. I don't get really, so there's a separate team that works on pricing, so I think we probably have to take it offline and see how can we help you guys.
This is very small, but could you please put it on the product roadmap somewhere that I can change a SAML icon?
Oh my God, yes.
Because for the love of God. And the thing is, if you do a custom SAML app, I can put whatever icon I want, but the ones you have, you just get a random one, and it's just like, please.
I feel your pain. I see this is like one of our top asks. It's already on the product team's radar, but I will convey that to the right team.
It looks like we have to wrap it up here. Do you want to do a closing?
All right, guys. So I'd like to just maybe get one more round of applause for our fantastic presenters today.